Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Thursday, December the 1st. We're into the last month of the year, guys. Jim Derry and Spencer the Guru here with me, and we started off with a bang. What a sports weekend we have. LSU in the SEC Championship Game. Talk about that. Saints on Monday Night Football against the Bucs. We'll get to that, of course. Team USA, even Jim Derry's watching some World Cup soccer. They got the Netherlands on Saturday morning. So three underdogs that people around here are rooting for. We'll talk who has the best chances out of those three, and we'll go through our picks. We've also got Max Meyer from Caesar Sportsbook coming on a little later to talk some odds and trends with us. So with that said, guys, it's a good weekend. Let's get to it.
I was having a week full of insomnia, so I decided to watch some soccer, and that has really helped my situation a little bit.
I'm happy for you.
Anything you can
do. The past 3 days with the group stages ending in various groups have been legitimately edge of your seat stuff for those countries, at least for those countries involved. I
didn't watch anything today, so I don't know what happened today.
Germany out of the World Cup today. Out.
That's a shame.
Yeah, Japan won the group. Yeah, I was keeping up with it here at the office. It was some fun games for sure.
First salmon for everyone.
Yeah, for a while it looked like Germany and Spain would be going home, but Spain does move on. So we'll talk about that. That's actually the first of the three coming up. It's Saturday morning. Want to remind you first that we are brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. Get your first bet on Caesars up to $1,250 back as a free bet for new users. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars. Or as we always say, if you prefer free LSU posters, all you got to do is sign up at LSUposter.com. Give us your address. We'll send you 3 front pages from LSU championships past just as soon as you make your first bet of at least $10. So check that out at LSUposter.com. So real quick, guys, we'll start with the SEC Championship Game because they don't come along every year. LSU is getting 17.5 points in this game. It's a huge spread. Obviously, Georgia, very good. We talked about this some over the past couple of weeks. Is the spread too big?
I went back and forth on this, and I finally settled on Georgia. I can't. We don't know how hurt Jaden Daniels is. We don't know how much the loss last week's going to take out of him. I do think they'll be more focused. I think they'll keep it semi-close for a while, but I think in the end, Georgia's going to pull away. I talked about it the last couple of weeks, and the fact that it's kind of a revenge game for Georgia. I mean, a lot of these players were on that 2019 team that LSU demolished. And so Georgia's got a little extra oomph in their step, I think. And I know people say, well, they haven't played that great because they haven't had to. I think when Georgia needs to turn it on, kind of like that LSU team in 2019, when they need to turn it on, they can and they will. And I think they're by far the best team in the country. I don't think it's close. I really don't think. I think there's one, and Michigan's well beyond Georgia. And really, I think Ohio State's second best team in the country still. But that's a whole nother story that I'm sure we'll get into. I don't like LSU's matchups against here. Georgia's defense is too good. And even if Jaden Daniels is semi-healthy, I just think they're going to have a tough time running the football.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of those points. I was on Georgia on Monday, and I'm sticking with them. I think they're going to win this one handily, like Jim said, with Jaden Daniels' health being up in the air. And I also feel like the fact that they don't have a shot at the playoff anymore. I think that's going to really suck the life out of them. To where if they still had that shot, I think they'd probably be more motivated. But it's now that they don't have it, I think they're going to get the doors blown off them.
Yeah, I hate.
What are they even playing for, Zach?
I mean, you get to hang an SEC banner. You get to go to the Sugar Bowl. I mean, I'm not saying that obviously that pales in comparison to the CFP. I have a hard time believing LSU is not going to play hard. I do think Georgia's that good. I really think I liked when I first saw this spread a couple weeks ago, and it was Georgia minus 16 and then 15. I actually kind of liked LSU, and then. It wasn't just watching LSU struggle against A&M that changed my mind, but Jaden Daniels being hobbled, and he's going to play. He is going to play. But the guy was in a walking boot as late as Tuesday. And you watch the way he plays. If he's hobbled at all, if he's slowed at all, that's a game changer for the LSU offense. And so I think that could be an issue.
Also, Zach, I know you guys don't don't put this into your thinking as much as I do, but and we can ask Max this question in a little bit, but I think Mabel's all over LSU here. I think the public is just drinking what LSU. I think it's a lot that Georgia hasn't looked that great, and again, they turn it on when they have to. But the public, from everything that I've seen, it's like 80% is on LSU, and I just can't. I don't know that I'm going to bet it. I probably won't, to be honest, at 17.5. If it were 16.5, I'd probably bet Georgia, but that 17 number is key. It's not as key when you start going up the rung, and it's not as important as like a 7 or a 10 even. But I just don't think you can play. If you like Georgia, play it. If you like LSU, stay away from it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't maybe some live betting opportunities. I mean, it's just a hard one to handicap ahead of time. Earlier on Saturday, the United States will play the Netherlands in the World Cup. So wanted to mention that kind of at the top. The odds you see here are to advance. So this is who ends up moving on to the quarterfinals. Netherlands minus 250, USA plus 175. That means whether it be in regulation 90 minutes, whether it be in extra time, whether it be in penalty kicks. The three-way line, which is the traditional way of betting soccer, you see along the bottom there, and that is after 90 minutes plus stoppage time. So USA would be plus 310, the Netherlands minus 104, and a draw would be plus 230. And yeah, you're right. It is 75 percentage points of hold there. Quite a few. You can shop around on this. I know you guys are not soccer aficionados. I'm just going to say emotionally, the USA has a chance in this game. I mean, they really feel like they're playing well. They've only given up one goal, and it was a penalty kick. They haven't given up a single goal in the run of play in 3 games.
I'm going to say without, everybody knows my limited knowledge on soccer, but just from a bettor's perspective, you can guarantee that these lines are juiced towards the Americans. So, yes. I mean, so there's no value in playing the United States, none whatsoever. I mean, if you're playing it, you're playing it as a fan. So, I mean, that would lead me to either I play the Dutch or I don't play it at all. And I'm not going to play it at all because I don't know enough to say. But I think there's got to be value in the Netherlands here, and I'll also go to from an analysis point of view, and it works in every sport. It doesn't matter that it's soccer, football, or whatever. But when you talk about a team that expended every ounce of energy they had against Iran the other day, and I know that they got a nice little break there so they can rest, but emotionally, what did it take out of the Americans? So from a betting perspective, there's just no way I think you can bet the U.S. here. I'm not saying to go bet the Netherlands, but you just can't. You cannot bet on the U.S. here. You're not getting any value anyway.
Yeah, the total, by the way, is 2.5, juiced minus 160 to the under. And that, again, would be just for 90 minutes. So 1-1 would be an under. I also think, Spencer, to Jim's point, the U.S. has played much better in the first hour of games than they have in the last 30 minutes. And that's true for all 3 games. They don't have a really strong bench. Obviously, Greg Berhalter, the coach, doesn't trust the bench as much as maybe some people think he should. Their level of plays dropped off. They've gotten guys who are tired because they're not used to going 90 minutes for their club teams. Well, what does that tell you? In a game that could go beyond 90 minutes if it's tied, that could be a problem for the USA as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I wouldn't touch the U.S. with a stick in this one because it just doesn't seem like it matches up too well for them. They've done well to get where they have, but there's just no value there to me at plus 175. It's just, if it was a little more juiced, I'd maybe say take a flyer. But yeah, it's just, I mean, they've done pretty well in the group stage. Their defense has been outstanding, but yeah, I think it's probably where it ends.
And how hurt is Pulisic?
I mean, they say he's supposedly going to try to give it a go. Again, you're running around. I mean, these guys run 6 or 7 miles in an hour and a half. If you have an injury, you're going to get that. You can't fake that. You can't gut your way through 90 minutes. He's their playmaker. He's certainly their top assist guy and all of that. So without him, that offense breaks down a little bit. I don't know. I mean, it's a tall order. I will say I don't know that the Netherlands looked unbeatable so far in its stage. It could have been a tougher matchup for the United States. If they win, they likely play Argentina in the quarterfinals. that's a kind of
Then
team they're going to have a lot of trouble with.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Because Argentina will score goals, and anybody in the U.S. has obviously struggled to score goals. This could be a tighter game. I mean, I could see the United States finding a way here. So that's 9 a.m. Saturday. Then you got LSU. And then, of course, the Saints on Monday night. This has got to be the longest we've ever made it into a show without talking about the Saints. But listen, you guys don't score any points, we don't talk about you. That's how this works. So and of course, we'll have a Monday show to talk about this game too, Jim. But
and a Monday data too.
Bucks 3.5. It's not a huge spread.
Well, I mean, anyone that read my NFL picks column by now, and so far, I think it was about 3,000 of you. So thank you for that. I think that this is not a good matchup for the Bucks. I know. A lot of people. The Bucks are better than the Saints. Why? The Bucks are not better than the Saints. They're in the same boat. They're playing the same way. Their offensive line is a mess. I think the Saints actually have a really good matchup here. You saw this line jump down from 6 to 3.5 throughout the weeks because the Sharps are absolutely pounding the Saints. It's not going to go below 3.5 because that is a magic number, and then you'll get too much Bucks action, which I don't think they want too much Bucks action here. But I think the Saints win this game outright. They haven't won 2 in a row, so it fits into that mold. They don't have to win 2 in a row here. Well, and then they get their bye week. So, but teams that I just heard a stat a little while ago. Teams heading into their bye week facing a division opponent over the last, I think it was 9 years, are 48-17 against the spread. That's significant. That's a major trend. I wish I would have heard it before I wrote my column. But the Saints are in a great spot. I think the Saints will come out fighting, and I think they're going to put Tom Brady on his keister because of all the offensive woes offensive line woes that the Bucks have. Tristan Wirfs out is a major deal, and they don't have their center either. So that is a major deal for Tampa Bay. They don't even try to run the ball anymore. They don't even pretend to run. So that's going to just open up the pass rush for the Saints. And if they get Marshawn Lattimore to stick another thorn in the side of Mike Evans, it could be fun to watch. I think the Saints win.
Yeah, I mean, and Kyle asked who wins the NFC South. Look, I think the Saints can win this game and then beat the Falcons. That race looks a whole lot different if they can win those 2 games.
The problem is the Saints have to win this division. 8-9 is going to win this division, okay? But to win this division, that means the Saints have to go 4-1 down the stretch. I don't trust them to do that. They're going to lose to Philadelphia. So that means they have to win the rest of their games against, assuming they beat Tampa, because if they don't, they're out of it anyway. It's over. So then you have to assume they're going to beat Atlanta, Carolina, and it comes down to the Cleveland game with Deshaun Watson. And I don't know that I trust the Saints' run defense against Nick Chubb and company. So I got to say that if the Saints win this game, I think Atlanta's in the driver's seat, actually.
And wouldn't that be something? I mean, Atlanta's schedule not real easy either down the stretch. I mean, they played the Steelers this week. And the Steelers
7-10 could win. I mean, it's theoretically possible that 7-10 could win the division because Tampa Bay's schedule. I know they have to go on the road to play San Francisco after this one, and they get somebody tough at home.
Cincinnati
tough at home after that. So if Tampa Bay loses this game, they easily could be 5-9. They are not good. They're going to pack it in. They're not playing like they care all that much. I get Tom Brady came back. He didn't come back because he doesn't care. Well, he's playing like he doesn't care. He's not playing well. And the team as a whole is not betting it. So, I mean, I don't think Atlanta is actually 7-1. I think they were +4 something.
I'm going to check right now to see what that is. But it's interesting. I mean, and again, we're talking a big if here because the Saints have not proven that they can take care of anything that they're supposed to take care of. Atlanta is 7-1 at.
Okay, well, that's a good bet then.
Caesars. Yeah, the Bucks are minus 430 still, and the Saints at plus 1,000. I mean, look, again, you're talking about a team taking care of business when they haven't done that all year long, and
right.
So you're betting on something that probably is not going to happen. But if they could win their 3 division games, which they'll be favored in the other 2 after this Monday game, all of a sudden you own the tiebreaker over everybody else in the division. And yeah, even if you lose your other 2, you're 7-10. 7-10 with the tiebreaker might well get it done. Right. It might get it done.
I agree. And if you look at I'm sorry, Spence, but if you look at Atlanta's schedule down the stretch, it's way easier. I mean, it's not easy, but they get Pittsburgh and then they get their bye week. They get the Saints. That's going to be, that game could be for the NFC South. Who knows? At Baltimore, which Baltimore's up playing great right now, but it is a tough game. But then Arizona and Tampa Bay both at home. They play their last 2 games at home. So Atlanta could have it in their hands.
Yeah, Atlanta not a bad bet, Spencer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's 7-1, and you could do worse, but I don't. Their defense stinks, though. I mean, they can run the football, and they're one dimensional though. They can run the football, but is their offense trustworthy? I don't trust Marcus Mariota, and their defense is bad enough to where if they end up in a shootout, I'm not confident that they'll be able to keep up. So to me, Tampa's defense is still good enough to where they'll be able to win this division. Tom Brady's had his struggles, but their defense is still better than Atlanta or the Saints or Carolina, to where they'll be able to just kind of just backdoor their way into it because there's nobody else that's going to take them down. Nobody wants this division. It's pitiful. They're just going to hand it to Brady because there's nobody else that I mean, Atlanta had their chance last week.
They gave up 189 rushing yards to the Cleveland Browns. They gave up 453
That's a really
yards.
good running team.
Okay, well, 4 weeks ago, they gave up 453 total yards to the Ravens. And you can't count the Rams and Seahawks in between because neither one of – I mean, Seahawks
and they're not good, Kyle. What Marcus Mariota? He's a mid-level quarterback at best.
Ultimately, look, Spencer's right. The Bucs are the favorites, and they probably should be the favorites. I'm sure as hell not touching them at minus 430. That doesn't make any sense. But they should be favored. If you simmed out the season 100 times, the Bucs would win it more often than any other team. But but
not even 50, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not even sure it would be 50. It might be right at about 50. But everybody's got a chance. So I don't know. It's
Carolina has a chance.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. It's pitiful. But we'll keep talking about it. A couple of other things I want to mention on Bayou Bets before we're joined by Max Meyer of Caesars Sportsbook here at 20 past the hour. One is that there is one Louisiana team that's not an underdog this weekend, and that's the Greenies of Tulane. That this line's actually going up. They're 4-point favorites against a team that just beat them at Yulman Stadium 3 weeks ago, guys.
Real quick, Zach, do you still have that NFC South odds up?
I do.
What are Carolina's odds?
They're 18-1.
Listen to this schedule going forward, the rest of the season. They have their bye week this week, okay? At Seattle, Pittsburgh at home, Detroit at home, at Tampa Bay, who they've already shown they can beat, and at the Saints. Carolina could win this division.
Steve Wilkes has them playing hard. I will say that. Yep. Steve Wilkes is much better than Matt Rule.
I mean,
if they wouldn't have traded
18-1, this value.
They probably would win it, but they gave up. You know, they gave up. But if they wouldn't have, they might still be in it.
They have a good enough defense to win.
Sam Darnold is their best quarterback too, by the way. I mean, sad as that is to say.
Wow.
Sad as that is to say.
That's true, but wow.
He's probably the guy. So anyway, back to Tulane real quick before Max joins us. American Athletic Conference Championship Cotton Bowl berth on the line here. Very interesting to see the line above a field goal against a team that just beat them 3 weeks ago.
Spence, you go first on this one.
Yeah, I think the Willie Fritz staying is huge to me. I feel like with him staying, that's going to be a big jolt of confidence for the Wave. That he's invested in this program. He's been with them a while. Thought that he might jolt because of the success they're having this year, but he's going to stick it out to where I like the Wave here. You know, they'll get a second chance at UCF, and UCF has been stumbling here down the stretch. They almost lost to Navy in South Florida, so I'm thinking Tulane wins this one and covers.
Here's the problem I have with that. I'm glad Willie Fritz is staying, but you can't tell me that it didn't take 3 days of distraction off Tulane's plate at a really bad time. The fact that it happened earlier in the week is great, but I don't like that this even came up at all. And the fact that he didn't shoot it down right away is also a problem. Secondly, we don't know the health of John Reese Plumlee, which is a big deal for UCF because if he plays and he's, I don't see how Tulane can beat this team with him in there. They didn't have an answer. I mean, the game that I saw before, they could play that game 10 times and Tulane might win 1 or 2.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Tulane wasn't very good against him at all. And I just got to say that Tulane's, not that UCF is any juggernaut and they're used to being in this position because they're not really necessarily used to it either. I just don't. I don't know. Tulane is in uncharted waters. I don't like the spot for them at all. Although they are playing at home and it helps them, but 4 points is a lot of points to lay. I'm not saying they can't win. I think they can win, but I think it's going to be a super tight game. Another game I won't touch, but if I had to take it, I would take UCF and give me the 4 points.
Yeah, it is a lot of points, and I look, Tulane lost by a touchdown the first time around. They lost 2 fumbles. They had 83 yards and penalties. I mean, there are things they could clean up, and they were still only losing by a touchdown. Now, having said that, yeah, I don't have a strong take here either way. I do think Tulane gets it done. I mean, look, they've been in uncharted water for half a season now, and they're still playing well.
They're playing in a championship game now.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that. So that's the story uptown. Now let's bring on Max Meyer from Caesar Sportsbook. He's got some knowledge for us. Max, how are you today? Can you hear me, Max?
I can't hear you, Zach.
Oh, uh-oh. All right, Max can't hear us. We're going to work on that for just a second. In fact, maybe we'll try again on that. I do want to talk to him about Thursday night football. Bills are a 4-point favorite at the Patriots. This line's been all over the place, anywhere between 5.5 down to 3.5, now back up to 4. Let's see, Max, are you with us? Doesn't seem like Max can hear us right now. Jim, what's your take on tonight's game?
Well, the Bills haven't really been playing all that well. And you're going to a Patriots team. Obviously, they know each other very well. Bill Belichick, throughout his career, is 14-5 on Thursday nights. And the Bills are okay. But in the same spot last year, we're seeing the same thing with Buffalo that we saw last year. They went through a mini funk. And they got out of it at the end of the year. But this same time last year, they were still in that little funk. And that included a game against the Patriots that I think was 10-7. So I'm not necessarily convinced that the Bills are really good right now. I think they will be again. I'm not convinced that Josh Allen isn't 100% healthy. So they've had their issues. I think it's going to be a tight game. I actually think New England's going to win the game. And I think the Bills will get right because next week they have a complete revenge game against the New York Jets at home. I'm not saying they'll look ahead because you can't look ahead past Bill Belichick. You can't look ahead against the Patriots, but I do think it's an interesting game, and I think the Patriots are going to find a way to win. They need it more than the Bills, even though the Bills are tied for the division lead. The Patriots are on the bubble right now, whether they make the playoffs, and that loss last week really hurt them. I think they will be ultra focused, and I think the Patriots will play very well tonight, and I think they'll win this game.
It's a rematch of a game last year. I think it was a Monday night game where the winds were blowing like 40 miles an hour, and it ended 9-6 or whatever the hell it was. Don't think it'll be that ugly. But New England's 10 sets. Spencer, New England will try to muddy this game up for sure.
Yeah, I think this will be an under game. I would take the under in this, but I don't believe in New England. I just don't. Bill Belichick's one of the greats. I understand that, but as far as the team itself, what do they have? I mean, they're just not very good. Their defense, to me, got exposed on Thursday night against Minnesota. And I feel like Buffalo will be able to do enough to pull this one off. Another thing with Buffalo, they're much healthier on defense. They have Greg Rousseau, their young pass rusher, back, as well as their top linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds. So to me, with those reinforcements, I see them being able to contain the Patriots offense. Will be without Damian Harris again, going to be super dependent on Ramondre Stevenson, who's solid, but is he really going to be able to carry the full load? We'll have to see. But against Buffalo, I don't really buy it, and the Patriots receivers stink, so I'm gonna take Buffalo.
Millennial love for them Bills, baby.
I will say this: I agree. This is a dangerous game for Buffalo. I could see New England winning 4 points, and it was 3.5 earlier today. That doesn't seem like enough. I mean, it just seems like the spread should be, and maybe what it is that there's been some pushback to the Bills having these enormous spreads all year long, Jim. That finally they're not covering some, and maybe we're seeing some adjustment to that.
Well, I think that what's happening here is you have a rare case this week because for some reason, and it's been a lot the last couple of weeks as well. The Sharps have been a lot on the side of Mabel's because their biases, some of these Sharps biases are hysterical. But I think that this week, this is one of those weird games where the Sharps are actually, I think, and Max can tell us if he can hear me, but I think the sharps are more on the Patriots and Mabel's more on Buffalo. So I'm gonna again. I don't have a strong feel for this game. It wasn't in my best bets. I am gonna play it a little bit. It is not a daily best bets, and I think that Josh Allen will do okay. I think he's gonna have to run the football a little bit for them to be successful. But I also agree with Spencer. I'd rather prefer the under. I think if I had to take one of those, but 4 points is too many. You can't give New England 4 points at home. I'm just not doing it.
I just don't think it's the same New England team. That's why
I don't think it's the same Buffalo team either. I mean,
I think it was those reinforcements on defense will help. If it wasn't for that, I'd be more on the New England side.
When you go on the road,
two quality pieces there, Russo and Edmonds.
I'm not saying that's not the case, but when you go on the road and you have to like if you need a last minute drive to beat Detroit, you got problems. Detroit, I know Detroit's better than the old Detroit, but they're still Detroit. And if you need a last minute drive to beat Detroit on Thanksgiving Day in front of the entire country, you have issues, and Buffalo has issues.
Yeah, well, I think Buffalo's biggest issue will be if they're getting in the shootouts. Like now that Josh Allen's not 100%, I think Kansas City or the Bengals would be not an ideal scenario for them.
Yeah, I think we got Max back. Max, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. Sorry about
great.
the technological difficulties here.
It's live video. You never know what you're going to get. But chime in on this discussion, if you would, on Bills Patriots Thursday Night Football for us. A little bit smaller line than we're used to seeing with Buffalo against sort of that middle tier of the NFL. But of course, the argument, Patriots at home, you can't doubt them. So what is the action like on this game?
Yeah, so we opened this game, Bills 5.5, and it's just been tumbling down throughout the week, and it actually reached as low as 3.5 before coming back up to 4 about like an hour and a half ago. We've gotten majority of Bills action for both spread and money line. However, the 7 biggest spread and or money line bets so far to come in for this game are all on the Patriots. And I just think it's the question about, Josh Allen and his injury. I mean, that's why we, adjusted our Super Bowl odds and made the Chiefs Super Bowl favorites over the Bills. Just questions about how he would be impacted by it as, we just don't know how he's going to perform because this is an injury that isn't going to heal itself overnight. And against Bill Belichick and that defense, we've seen, the Bills not look as sharp as they were earlier in the season. I don't think they've covered any of their past 5 games. And it's a divisional battle. And usually, it's always, recommended to take the divisional underdog, especially usually at over a field goal. And I kind of like this Patriots team. So I think 4 is a pretty fair number. But I definitely get the Patriots action that we're getting.
And Zach, I will say to Max's point, I went to go. I don't know why I didn't bet it earlier in the week, but I went to go look at it last night. It's 3.5. I'm like, I'm going to wait because I was pretty sure it was going to go back to 4. Max, you don't see it going up higher than that, though, do you?
I don't think it'll go back to 4.5 just because of all the money that we've gotten from the Patriots at higher numbers. So I would imagine that it's going to be 4, 3.5 when this closes.
Yeah, so I waited till it got to 4. So now that I know it's 4, as soon as we get off of this thing, click.
Let's skip ahead while we're on the subject of the NFL, Max, and go all the way to Monday night. This is a game, again, where the line has shrunk. It opened up, I think, at Bucks -6 and has come all the way down almost to the field goal. It's been here at 3.5 now for a few days, though.
Yeah, so it was actually even a little higher. It was 6.5. So, but yeah, like you said, it's come down by a field goal. And the Bucks, they've gotten majority of the tickets, about 57%. However, it's the Saints, 78% of the money, and that's typically, what you think is going to happen if a spread comes down by 3 points. Buccaneers. What else is there to say? I just think the coaching staff is an absolute disaster. And with the talent they have on this roster, it's pretty inexcusable that they have a losing record. And I understand that bettors aren't comfortable, or at least sharper bettors aren't comfortable laying all these points in a divisional game. The Saints, it'll be fun to see Marshawn Lattimore against Mike Evans in that battle. And we'll have to see if Leonard Fournette plays, though. I don't think he's worth anything to the spread at this point. I think Rashad White and Fournette are pretty equal. But yeah, no, I just think it's going to be an interesting battle. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. And just, the Buccaneers, when they were at 6.5 and having to, beat them by a touchdown in a game that I don't think either team, tops like 24 points. It's a really tough ask to do.
Yeah, that's a lot. The other game, of course, Louisiana has its eyes on, or one of the other games anyway, the SEC Championship game from Atlanta on Saturday. Georgia up to 17.5 here. How much of this is the market? How much of it is Jaden Daniels' injury? Maybe those two things go hand in hand. Why the movement here?
Yeah, so we opened 15.5 up to 17.5. And I think the sharper money in the beginning, it was because of the Daniels injury. I did see, though, today that he said that he was going to play. But, just seeing how impacted he'll be, he's obviously not going to be 100%. And against a Georgia defense that maybe not as elite as last year, but still one of the best in the country, that's definitely a tall order. And, and with Georgia, obviously that their playoff hopes are solidified. LSU, I mean, it would be definitely a nice statement to end Brian Kelly's first year if they can even keep this close. I kind of like the LSU and the 17.5. I just think LSU has more to play for. I do think Daniels will play. And I think with Georgia, yes, like they do have, a decent offense, but against an LSU defense that has a lot of talent, I just think asking Georgia to win by over 3 possessions when this isn't necessarily a must-win for them, I think that's a lot to ask for.
No, that's a good point. The other conference championship game here in Louisiana, down in New Orleans, Tulane, a 4-point favorite over Central Florida. Again, we've got a quarterback injury, John Reese Plumlee. We were talking about this just before you came on. Tulane favored by more than a field goal against a team that beat them on the same field 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, and Tulane wasn't even a field goal favorite in that game. So it's the market has definitely reacted considerably since that game. Considering UCF, they lost to Navy. They almost blew a 28-point lead against USF. Maybe just because they knew after the Tulane win that they would be in this conference title game. Maybe there was some coasting involved. I think obviously Plumlee knocked out with the concussion. I think his status is really the big key. But just at first glance, given where this line was between these two teams at Tulane just a few weeks ago, I just think it's a bit of an overreaction. But I'm not betting anything until I know Plumlee's status for this game. And in terms of betting action for this, it still has been majority of the money on Tulane, and that's why this line's gone from 2.5 to 4.
Tulane, very strong defense week to week. Kyle, as what's the total? I'm not sure what game you're talking about, Kyle, so chime back in and we'll go back to that. A little bit of rapid fire, Max. First in college football, take a look at some of these other conference championship games. The Pac-12 game Friday night and the Big 12 game Saturday early. Both teams that need to win to secure that playoff spot are real short favorites here. So interesting spots for both of those.
Yeah, and the Pac-12 game in particular has just been getting unbelievable action. We took our biggest football bet of the season, NFL or college, on USC Utah. We had one bettor in the Bahamas who put $901,000 on USC money line when it was minus 130 to win almost $700,000.
Max, that's actually Mattress Mac went on vacation. That's all that is. So
honestly, that's a pretty low bet for Mattress Mac.
Yeah, you're right.
That's true.
He just had a little left over in the vacation budget.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So we opened USC as a 1-point favorite. Obviously, Utah beat USC by 1 when these two teams played earlier in Salt Lake. But this line climbed up to USC -3, aided by that huge money line bet. But we started seeing some sharp action at Utah +3, including a 6-figure bet there. And now we're down to 2.5. So I think the market's pretty much spoken for where it feels that this line should be. And USC, they've been the most popular bet by far on this entire slate by tickets. Utah still gotten the majority of the handle, though, with the big reason because of that $110,000 bet on Utah +3.
How about that Big 12 game? Similar situation with TCU?
So this line hasn't reached 3 yet, but the feeling is that if it does reach 3, it's going to be the same deal, that the Sharps are going to hop all over Kansas State at 3. And, and again, this is obviously another matchup where these two teams have played. TCU rallied in the second half against Kansas State. Adrian Martinez, Kansas State starting quarterback, was injured in that game. And I really think that this Kansas State team is really tough. And I think that TCU, even if they were to lose this game, I just think that their resume is very strong and that they would get in regardless, as long as they don't get blown out like Ohio State did last weekend against Michigan. Like, as long as they keep it close, I think that TCU is fine. And just with Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, I just love the rushing attack that Kansas State has. I think Chris Kleiman's a great coach. If I had to pick an underdog between either Pac-12 or Big 12, I would go with Kansas State of the two.
Boy, I don't know. You put a bunch of old college football OGs in a room and ask them, give them a reason to pick Ohio State. They may just take you up on that. So I think if I'm TCU, I better win that game.
Yeah, and we've been getting a ton of Ohio State national title action. We were at 50-1 after the Michigan loss, and we've taken several big bets, including a pair of $10,000 ones when Ohio State was down to 14-1. And now they're at plus 750. They have even better odds than TCU and USC does. And so bettors are definitely rooting for either Kansas State in a blowout or Utah insane. This weekend.
That's insane that people would bet on a plus 750 line for a team they don't even know that's going to get in. And if they do get in, they have to play. They're going to have to play either a team that they just got blown out by, and another team that they probably can't beat. That makes no sense.
I'll take it at 50-1. I don't know about plus 750.
And like some of the bets, it was like 4,000 at 40-1, 5,000 at 30-1. So they got when the value was better. But just thinking that Ohio State, against Georgia and against Michigan actually on a neutral field, Ohio State would actually still probably be favored. Against Georgia, they would be a sizable underdog. But at 50-1, there were at 40-1 and 31, et cetera. There were bettors that still felt that at that price that it was worth the stab.
They would certainly be favored over Michigan because then that means they beat Georgia because they're going to be 4 if they get in. So 4 versus 1, they're going to play Georgia. So of course, if they beat Georgia, they'll be favored over Michigan. But to beat those teams in succession, even if they get in, I mean, I don't think there's any value if you're getting less than 20-1.
I was definitely not at 750. I don't think there's as much value, but I just thought it was crazy that ever since the Michigan loss, Ohio State has received over twice as much money to win the national title as any other team.
That's insane.
Yeah, and speaking of Michigan, Max, do you think that they'll cover against Purdue? I know Purdue hadn't been too good, but they've been winning lately. Do you think there could be some value with the plus? I think it's plus 17 for Purdue.
Yeah, so we're down now to 16.5. We were getting pretty sharp action on Purdue at 17. And obviously, I'm sure you guys saw the news with Blake Corum, how he's out for the year. And normally, I don't think running backs mean that much to the spread, but this is actually an exception where I think Corum does. I mean, I saw that PFF, Pro Football Focus, had him as their highest graded running back since 2014. He just means so much to this team. And I still don't think he's worth more than a point. But I'm definitely interested to see how Michigan performs, and especially with Purdue knowing that he's not part of the game plan. But Michigan has been the most lopsided bet so far by handle among this entire slate. They're at about like 82% of the handle, and they're the only team that's actually getting above 70% of the handle among all the conference title games.
2 more NFL games I want to run by you before we let you go, Max, and they're both Sunday afternoon big ones. Chiefs and Bengals, AFC Championship Game rematch. Chiefs have been getting steamed down to just a 2-point favorite now on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, so we opened Chiefs 3-point road favorites down to 2. Chiefs getting 72% of the tickets, only about 55% of the handle, though. So, I mean, you can just tell off of that we're getting sharp money on the Bengals. Jamar Chase looking like he's coming back. Joe Mixon, he's still recovering from a concussion. We'll see if he plays. But I just think with Bengals Chiefs, Bengals have been one of the best teams at covering the number this year. Chiefs definitely haven't been nearly as good. I just really like Joe Burrow, and I think anytime I can get him as a home underdog, I'm usually pulling the trigger. And though this is a big statement game for Mahomes, because you would think, just given that the Chiefs schedule the rest of the year after this game is relatively easy, that if he can put up a big game here, you would think that he locks up MVP after.
Max, how big is the over getting pounded?
Over, it's definitely one of our most popular overs on the board this week, and especially after their 2 meetings last year where there were points aplenty. Not a big surprise that bettors are on this over.
Yeah, I took that on Tuesday because I knew it was not going down.
Yeah, definitely not. And the other one to talk about, same time window, a possible Super Bowl rematch would probably take an upset or here or there, but the Dolphins at the 49ers, the Mike McDaniel Bowl, going back to San Francisco. 49ers are 4-point favorites here, and they got some sharp action too, I think, early in the week.
Yep. Yeah, so no, that line has risen up, and like you said, now 49ers are -4, and especially with Nevada bettors, they have been all over 49ers in futures markets, in game, and the fact that they finally, I guess, that they finally get a pretty low number on the 49ers. 49ers have been drawing most of the action so far, and the Dolphins, they have some O-line injuries, particularly Terran Armstead, and at least in terms of the metrics that their offense isn't nearly as efficient with Armstead out versus when he's in, and just with the 49ers pass rushers that they have and just such a strong defense, that's where I assume where the sharp angle is. But I think it's another exciting game. I personally think that this is the week with the most interesting storylines out of any this NFL season. So I'm really looking forward to it overall.
Never heard that Teron Armstead's been hurt before. We know a little something about that in New Orleans.
Speaking of interesting storylines, though, Max, I know I said I'll let you go. Browns Texans, the return of Deshaun Watson to Houston. Houston hasn't been able to beat anybody. They haven't covered against anybody. I mean, they're just awful. But this is their Super Bowl now, and they're getting 7 points at home. I'm curious to know the action on that game.
Yeah, so this is one of the most lopsided games for the week, and that's not a big surprise. We opened at 6.5, immediately 7. I would, even with all this action, I would be pretty surprised if this ended up at 7.5. I mean, it's not too often that you see the Browns as a 7-point road favorite. I feel like this decade, or even really this millennium, and we just don't know how Deshaun Watson will be, considering that he hasn't played in so long, and I personally like the upgrade with this current version of Watson, where obviously he could be very rusty, versus Jacoby Brissett, who I think has been mostly solid for the entire season. I don't think it's that big of an upgrade. I think the market just pushing this up to 7. It's tough because I think laying 7 points with a quarterback who hasn't played in so long, even with a team as bad as the Texans and how poorly they've been. I just think that this is kind of ripe for maybe a Texans even backdoor cover. I wouldn't I wouldn't lay the points with the Browns in this game.
Max, what's the handle on that game? Because I just got to think. I think it's more of people not necessarily. They might not love Cleveland. You just cannot bet on Houston right now. Period. I mean, you can if you want to. But yeah, it's just hard to bet on the Texans. Period.
No, you're right. This game is pretty middle of the pack in terms of handle on the spread, and it hasn't been like overwhelming Browns action. It's just been a lack of Texans action. I think only the Broncos actually have less money overall than the Texans do.
That makes sense. They should play each other.
Yeah, that was one I thought about.
They already did.
Oh, I thought
about putting that on my big bucks card, but I was like, nah, I can't touch it because it's just too many unknowns to me there with the Watson situation.
Yeah, and I'll leave you guys with this. So the team that has received the most 6-figure bets so far to cover the spread is the Rams, and they're getting. Well, I think it actually dropped to 7 today, but it was 7.5 as home dogs against the Seahawks.
I'm on that.
Yeah, very interesting. Well, Max Meyer from Caesars, we appreciate you coming by and dropping knowledge as always.
Of course, and good luck, guys, especially against the Bucs on Monday.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Max.
That's Max Meyer of Caesars Sportsbook. Really good stuff there, as always. Other NFL games that we didn't really mention there, some of these guys, I mean, and we'll get into our big bucks here in just a minute. Max is right. It's a very interesting card this week. Very few easy picks out there.
I mean, when I was started the week, when I started going through analysis, and I like to make preliminary picks, and I'll type in like 7 or 8 things before I start getting analysis, like just things that jump out of it. And I had trouble. Getting a 4. So I had to really dive deep into this week to get my best bets out of here, because there wasn't a whole lot that I liked. And for me to bet a total, because totals for me are usually really good the first half of the year with totals, because a lot of unders come in, and I tend to pound unders early in the season. It's much harder the second half of the season to get your totals. So I tend to lay off them, but I had to put a total in there because I don't know that there's 5 games that I love this week. This was a really hard week, and it's a really hard week if you're still alive in Survivor, because you've likely taken Dallas and Baltimore already. And other than that, there's no sure thing on this board.
Tell me about it. I'm in a big Survivor pool. taking Dallas and Baltimore, and I got to pick two. And so I went with Cleveland and I went with Seattle because I have Buffalo and Philly left.
No, Seattle, no.
But I mean, look, you got to take two. It's not a week to take Buffalo. It's not a week to take Philly, I don't think. So, if given the options, I'm taking two touchdown
You're taking
favorites.
a road team in a division game.
Yeah.
That's a surefire way to saying adios to your survivor pool.
Listen, if Bryce Perkins knocks me out of that survivor pool, I'll have to tip my cap.
John Wolford could be John Wolford.
That's the Rams are not an NFL team right now. It's just not.
Say so.
We'll see what happens. And they have done well against the
Seattle's
Seahawks recently. Yeah, I mean, if it's close, it's close. I just need a win, right? Yep. All right. That's the story. We'll get to our big bucks here. I had a couple of futures bets, but we're running out of time. So let's get to big bucks. I hate this week. Listen, I told you guys I hated this week. I hate it even more. I made this pick before Blake Corum was out. I didn't know where to go. I split my money up evenly because I didn't really have a best bet, but I took Michigan minus 17. We were talking off air about Cowboys and Colts. I just don't think the Colts – I think the Colts are a fade team all the way around right now. I know 10.5 is a lot. I think the Jeff Saturday bump is gone. They looked miserable on Monday night. It's a short week. Cowboys have extra rest. Cowboys look like they're on a mission. They'll turn it over a couple times, or they'll turn Matt Ryan over a couple times. I did take the Rams. See, this is where I hate this week. I took the Seahawks, but I took the Rams with the points here because I do think that game stays close. And then my teaser at the bottom, I'm taking Utah in the college world combined with the Steelers +5.
College teasers are like taking college unders.
That's going to be a close game. That's going to be.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I agree with you. I think it's a close game, and but man, it seems to me like just college 6.5 points in a college. I mean, 6 points in a college game, getting a gift is nothing like getting 6 points in the NFL, because if you look at totals, they're usually 20 points apart.
No, that is true. That is true. All right, but like I said, I hated this week. I've done poorly so far in big bucks, so now that I have a slate of picks that I absolutely hate, I'll probably go 5-0.
Probably.
All right, Spencer, what you got?
Yeah, that might be the recipe for success there. So yeah, I was kind of in the same boat. I was kind of having trouble identifying a best bet, but I went with the 49ers here because it's the teacher versus student. I think the teacher, Kyle Shanahan, takes down the student, Mike McDaniel. And I'm not betting against that 49er defense. And for the chalk play, going with the Packers and the Bears, looking like Justin Fields probably is going to sit out through their Week 14 bye week. So 4.5 is pretty good value on Green Bay to me. Even if Aaron Rodgers doesn't go, it looks like Rodgers will go. But even if it's Jordan Love, the Bears, they stink. They're tanking. And
the Bears are trying to lose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I had to go with Green Bay, even though they stink too. And then the Colts, I like the Colts this week. I know we talked about it off air, but the reason I like them is because the Cowboys' run defense isn't too good. So I'm thinking Jonathan Taylor can do pretty well. And the Colts' defense should be better off this week. They had a flu bug going around their locker room heading into the Monday night game. So I'm thinking they'll be a little healthier this week against a Cowboys offense that hadn't been all that great with Dak Prescott. And then the total Broncos-Ravens, it's just Lamar Jackson's hadn't been too good lately. Russ has been just the worst, so I definitely like the under there. And then a moneyline parlay, I think Atlanta sneaks out a win over Pittsburgh. And then I think the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes gets his revenge on Joe Burrow.
All right. Jim is in the lead. Jim's up over $1,100 again. What you got, Jim?
Someone has to explain to me how the Raiders and Chargers are an even game.
I believe the Raiders actually -1 now.
The Raiders are terrible. They won 2 games in a row. Big deal. They had to go in overtime a couple weeks ago against a bad Denver team. They're not good. And the Chargers, meanwhile, I'm not saying the Chargers are great, because Lord knows I've been all year long kind of fading the Chargers. But in this spot, I mean, you're begging me to take them. All right, I'm gonna take the bait. The Chargers are playing for something the Raiders aren't. And to me, the Chargers are, even when they're banged up, they're that much better than the Raiders. I think the Raiders get knocked down a peg. I think the Raiders would be a bad teaser leg. I think they're going to get beat pretty bad in this game. So I only have 22 on it, only because I was saving money for my teaser, because those have been hitting and I'm sticking with it. My chalk play Packers, I'm with Spencer, but I hated that the line shifted. I already bet it in real life a few days ago at -4, but I'm with Spencer. But just to be safe, I'm going to pay an extra $1 for that juice to keep it at -4. So I'm going to bet 12 to go 10. The Packers have won 7 in a row in this series, and 22 of the past 25. And in those 7 wins they've won in a row, they won by at least 7 points in all of them and by 10 or more in the past 5. I get this isn't the same Packers team, but Aaron Rodgers, who's your daddy? The Bears are terrible. Aaron Jones is going to run all over this Bears team this week.
And then, A.J. Dillon.
And A.J. Dillon as well. And then you talk about my Chiefs Bengals. We kind of touched on it a little bit. And Max said exactly what I was thinking. I bet this at 52.5. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think both teams are going to be focused. Then my teaser, Ravens, I don't love the spread. I didn't want to play the Ravens spread. So I'm going to, again, here's another instance. This was 2 all week, so I paid the extra juice. And the Browns just got to win. So basically Browns and Ravens, unless something fluky happens, they just have to win. I cannot see Deshaun Watson going in and losing to the Texans. I hear you, Zach, about Texans Super Bowl, and I don't like the spread. I wouldn't touch it. But if you're telling me all the Browns have to do is just win, I think they can do that. And so another teaser going through key numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, I think here's the thing about the Browns is Deshaun Watson could struggle. He very well might. In fact, I would expect him to struggle a little bit. So then you just play this like you would have played it with Jacoby Brissett, where you pound them 40 times
which
with
is
the
what
running
I think
game.
they're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and then play defense, and you just come away with, maybe it's 24-17, maybe it's 20-17. I don't know what it is, but they'll just suffocate them.
If this was average Joe Blow coach, I would say then maybe they're not smart enough to figure out all you need to do is run the ball because we want to show off our shiny new toy, Deshaun Watson. But I don't think Kevin Stefanski's like that. I really think he's a good coach. He's had issues with his team, but he's playing the hand he was dealt. And I think he knows he can run the football. By the way, that is a 6.5-point teaser. It's not my usual 6-point teaser. I bought the extra half point specifically for the purpose of the Ravens. I think that 2 is a significant number these days. I don't want to give I don't want them to have to win by a full field goal. So I bought the extra half point. So that's -130 on the teaser, paying 39 to win 30 on that.
Super interesting stuff. We've got a big weekend coming up. Team USA Netherlands, 9 a.m. Saturday. Tulane LSU, and we didn't mention Southern. Southern's in the SWAC championship against Jackson State. All of those games at 3:00 on Saturday, and then Monday night, of course, the Saints after a terrific Sunday of NFL football. And by the way, the Browns are 4-7. Their schedule is not that difficult.
No.
And Deshaun Watson. Just to finish your thought, if he wants to go out there and show off, that's one thing. I think he wants to win. And if they want to have a chance at the playoffs, they're going to have to go at least 5-1 down the stretch. He knows they got to get that win streak going and let him sort of ease into it. Say what you want about Deshaun Watson. I think he's a smart football player, and I think he'll figure that out. But yeah, it's interesting game for sure.
Let's win, just to win. So
yeah, exactly. And that's for survivor purposes. That's all I need to. So I'm right there with you. Spencer the Guru, your final thought before we go into this big sports weekend.
Ooh, all right. Yeah, shout out to the Pels. The Pels got a big win. Zion carried the load, with the BIs banged up. CJ McCollum still not there. Nice to see Zion finally be an alpha and really take over,
man.
Exactly. Yeah. That's huge. That is huge. That's the Zion I've been waiting for because it's like, man, he's got to show me something. That's why I was kind of on I think it was a Monday. I was on the Thunder to cover, and they did because Zion, the Pels won, but Zion didn't really do his thing, but then he did last night. So it's great to see him doing what we expected him to do.
And the Pels up to number 3 in the Western Conference, Jim.
Yeah. It's, again, fun to see. We're going to have a Weird Datitude schedule coming up. Usually I'm with Duncan tomorrow live. I'm going to be with Gordy Rush live tomorrow. He is the sideline reporter for the LSU Tigers. He will be on. And we're going to spend most of our day, most of our morning talking about LSU and not so much about the Saints because, frankly, A, the Saints stink, and B, they play on Monday. So we're going to have a live show with Jeff Duncan on Monday. I think he's in Tampa. So I'm not 100% certain he's going to Tampa, but so we will do shows on Friday, Monday, and Tuesday, and then back to our regular schedule of we're going to be Monday, Friday throughout the rest of the year. And with the bye week coming up, we actually may take some time off. So that's to come. Stick close. And one last note, former colleague and a longtime columnist at the Times-Picayune, John DeShazer, it was learned that he has cancer just yesterday or the day before. We wish him nothing but the best. I've known JD for a long time, and he is a wonderful human being and an outstanding columnist now working for the Saints and the Pelicans, and he is the color analyst for the New Orleans Pelicans on the radio with Todd Graffinini. So we wish him nothing but the best, and we're praying for you, JD, if you're hearing this.
Good stuff there. Special edition of Bayou Bets tomorrow, same time, 4 o'clock, live from Atlanta, myself and Scott Rabelais to talk a little LSU. So if you don't get enough with Jim and Gordy Rush in the morning, we'll have some in the afternoon for you, same channels. And then, of course, live coverage of the game Saturday, and we'll be back with you here on Monday. So until then, enjoy the games, everybody. Good luck with your bets, and we'll catch you back here on the Bayou Bets YouTube channel, 4 p.m. Monday. For Spencer and Jim, and for our producer, Zoe, I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good one.